The next speaker we have is Alfred Samba. This guy, I'm so excited to have admired from afar. He was the global head of social at Gymshark. Now he's the founder of Butterfly Effect, and he's going to bless us with so many different insights on what we should be doing in 2026. So without further ado, I would love to welcome Alf to the stage.
Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing?
Amazing. Alf, I'm going to pop out, do your thing, and I'll see you at the end, okay?
All right, amazing. Okay, so let me share my screen. So we've got something to talk through. I am assuming everybody can see that. Let's see some love in the comment section. Can everyone see that? Okay, oh, good. So what I'm going to talk about today in this brief couple of minutes is this concept of building a brand worth talking about in the trust economy. We just talked a lot about AI, and the word trust will play a key factor in your informing your marketing strategies going forward, specifically on the social media platform. So I'm going to go straight to it. So as mentioned, my name is Alfred Samba. How I like to describe myself is that I scale community for brands and people. I like to tell a bit of a background story about myself, so you realize why you're speaking to a random guy. I'm usually wearing a fedora with my British accent. So today I'm wearing a cap. So this is the first time I'm actually doing a presentation without my fedora. So I'm sorry to shortchange you on this presentation, but we'll step into my story. So for those that don't know, I was born in the Republic of Congo, so the center of Africa, hot, tropical. So you can imagine my shock when my family moved us to the UK and we saw snow for the first time. We knew nobody and nobody knew us, but one thing we wanted to do is make the most of our golden ticket of being in the UK. So all my time, I was obviously had this pressure of becoming a doctor like my dad, because obviously if you're African, that's like the greatest honor ever. So you can imagine the disappointment when you realize that I was shit at science and had to find something else. So I looked at my mom as a reference. She was an entrepreneur and a creative, and I thought that maybe that's where my path could be. And I said, you know what, I'm going to study some of the best in the marketing and brand world to see whether I can mimic and find some idols that I could be like. The first person I stumbled onto was a guy called Steve Jobs. The iPhone keynote in 2007 like blew my mind forever. The whole 1,000 songs in your pocket really changed my perspective on the art of storytelling and simplifying very complicated information. And I fell in love in marketing from that day. Then heard about a guy called Mark Zuckerberg who said no to $1 billion from Yahoo because he was working on an app called Facebook. I don't know about you, but if I told my mom that I was going to say no to $1 billion at the age of 21, 22, she'll ship me back to the Congo on the first flight. But whatever. But then that was great. So I found two people that made me fall in love with marketing, so social media marketing at the time. But then I needed somebody that looked like me or came from the same backgrounds that I did to be able to really give myself the permission to step into the space. And then I heard about a guy called Jay-Z, and obviously Jay-Z using rap lyrics to give out business news and updates. Really started to storytell in the language that I could understand. His whole concept of women lie, men lie, numbers don't, made me fall in love with the art and science of merging creative with data and making sure that you spit facts, as we just said. So with that, I went into the academic world, and I wrote about it in my dissertation about the fact that I felt that large, small to medium-sized businesses will take on the larger competitors using social, and it was marked down because of lack of Harvard references. And I said I was going to be that reference. You can clearly tell that my doctor dad was excited about the fact that his failed doctor son was going to be tweeting for a living. But took that into the business world. Heard about this guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, who was the first person to not make me feel crazy. His whole jab, 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 right hook, the whole concept of giving in advance before asking was the whole blueprint to my marketing and social media approach that I use today. I actually used it to get my first real big job in the social media space. I heard about these two 19-year-olds in Birmingham, UK, driving Audi R8s, who owned a company called Gymshark that I was a big fan of. And I said, you know what, I'm going to add everybody at Gymshark on LinkedIn. I'm going to do my jabs, send them information that I think will be valuable to them. And lo and behold, I got invited for a job interview, and I spent 7 years there, right? So just to give you the ROI of my 7 years at Gymshark in numbers and what we're able to achieve scaling community for the brand. So we went from 24 employees to 1,000 employees. We went from 1 million followers to 20 million followers. And then we went from an £8 million business to a £1.4 billion business, all quarterbacked through social media. Now, That's all great. We're able to do that for a BDC brand. A lot of people ask me, does this apply in other areas? So I said, you know what? I'm gonna do it. So my dad was obviously very proud of the fact that of my achievement. That's the biggest ROI, of course. And he didn't have just one Samba working for the company yet, two. So we were the talk of the town, two failures, now two heroes, which is amazing. I left Gymshark to set up my company called Butterfly Effect, where we wanted to test the theory of whether community marketing applies to different industries. So that was great. So me and my co-founder, Michael, decided to leave and start that. We started building a community within our own brands. Not only do we help other brands scale community, which is great, we also do that for our agency itself, proving that this also works in the B2B space, which has been phenomenal. We worked with some really great brands along this time, which has been great. So trusted by some brands you don't know at all. And also, I don't like to be a hypocrite, so I created myself. So I created on LinkedIn, and in 2024, I was ranked by Favicon as the second most engaged creator on LinkedIn globally, which is phenomenal. My mom's WhatsApp chat was buzzing that I wasn't a failure. I also started a podcast with Rory Sutherland, which has been great. He kicks my ass every week talking about creativity and marketing, which is phenomenal. And also, I was ranked the fifth most engaged person, influential person in social by Favicon. Too bad my bank account is nowhere near the guys that I was listed with. But again, I had to let down a few family members that came asking me for money, which I didn't have because I'm a brokey. But that's all great for me. What does this mean for you? One, it tells you that I have the credentials. I always like to make sure that who the information comes from is somebody that you trust. If I'm going to talk about trust marketing, you have to trust me. You have to know who I am before I give you any information. And we're going to step into how we actually made this happen. It's this concept of world building that myself and my co-founder talk about. And it's this whole art of building a brand that people don't want to just buy from. They want to feel like they belong to, be a part of, and help shape where it goes, right? And I think the simpler way to say this is community. But in how actually do you do this? And how do you leverage social in the best way possible in 2026 to make this happen? First and foremost, I talk about this concept of IQ, EQ, and FQ. So IQ is very clear. It's all about intelligence and making sure that you're utilizing the platforms, doing research, et cetera, et cetera. But now with AI, when IQ is becoming democratized and everybody has access to the same stuff, you need to be able to leverage EQ. That's emotional intelligence. Can you get people to stop scrolling? And can you make it worth that time? And that's all great. So IQ and EQ is enough to make you stand up from the pack. But the real people that want to start this world building community approach are also focusing on FQ, which is all about focus intelligence. What does that actually mean? So it's about a mindset shift, going from trying to be everything to everyone to being everything to someone, right? So this whole mass approach of just like reaching as many people as possible is great. But then if you really want to scale in 2026 going forward, you're going to focus on all your efforts on a small group that they're going to tell everybody else about you. That's a thing that everybody talks about because community equals trust, and trust is the metric that matters the most, especially in the world where everyone's distrusting of everything. As soon as you see a piece of content, as soon as somebody sends you something talks about something, you don't trust it automatically. The current state of leadership is not where it needs to be right now. And people need receipts before they can make decisions or before they can give that trust away. And that's what brands need to focus on this year going forward. And how do you actually start to build trust? So a Nielsen study talked about the fact that 88% of people trust word of mouth from people that they actually care about. And when you start to break that down a little bit more, who are those people? So 83 to 88% trust recommendation from friends and family. Online reviews is at 70 to 83%. Creators is 70%. That's actually a little bit downer because some creators are working with brands they don't align with because times are hard, you know. But then really what is really shocking here is that only brands only have 30% of the trust, right? So, and a lot of executives, 90% of executives still believe that they hold the trust, right? So there's an imbalance there. So the simple insight there is that it's important to get other people to talk about you instead of you talking about yourself. It's like me coming here and saying I'm a nice guy. Really, it only works if everybody else says I'm a nice guy. Is effectively the humor in that. But most brands are walking around just saying that they're a nice guy and people should buy from them. It's not going to work. So just to give you in a simple phrase, we always talk about the fact that the reason why Gymshark grew the way that it did is because more people talked about Gymshark than Gymshark itself, right? And I can use a visual triangle like this. Most brands, this is what they do. If you can envision this as being like a share of voice or a share of conversation about the brand. Usually they're the dictator of their own narrative, and the brand hijacks most of the conversation about itself, and they leave only a small amount of noise for people that are not related to the brand. But top brands that are community centric, they actually speak the least about themselves and create catalysts for conversations around the brand. And if you can get to a space where we can leverage creators and work with your audience to be able to like increase the noise about the brand, you're more likely to win and you're more likely to be trusted. And what you can do with that once you've got it is about leveraging the three pillars. I like to call them the holy grail, if you will, of leveraging influencers, organic, and paid to really create that flywheel. What we did at Gymshark was, instead of seeing this as separate departments, we actually made them work together like a band, right? They're just playing different instruments, as opposed to being like individual singers yelling at top of each other. It would use creators to create content and test market. We'll then put that content on organic, and the best performing content we'll put on paid. That flywheel allowed us to make sure that we're only expanding content that created more conversation around the brand that people actually cared about, and therefore created more and more conversations around the brand, as opposed to just trying to convert people with ads at first interaction. So another thing that's really interesting that's happening around the world right now, if you look at what's just recently happening in Meta, I don't know whether this is in the US, but in the UK, you can actually opt out of ads, which therefore means that people, if they're all going to keep their ads on, if you're still going to be paying for ads, you need to make sure that they're great. You need to make sure that it's things that people don't want to opt out from. So we've already seen that with YouTube, they've seen that actually like a lot of people have started to opt out of the ads from that perspective. We can start to see that happening a little bit on Meta, but still, I've been speaking to a bunch of people that love their ads if they're worth it. So if you're going to be one of those brands that are going to be leveraging paid, if you're going to be one of those brands that are going to be creating on socials, you've got to make it worth people's time. You've got to make sure that you're increasing those trust and connection with your brand. Otherwise, people are just going to opt out and not want to see you, and it's going to mess it up for everybody. We're going to go. So there's some other metrics that we're going to be looking at now in 2026, but I'm not going to bore you too much. Really, you have to be asking yourself 5 questions. Are we being talked about? Do people care enough to interact with us? Are fans proud to talk about us? Are we fueling the right storytellers? But then also, are we converting belief into action? That's super, super important. Instead of just asking, have we converted? You should be asking a little bit more than just transactional, almost like focus on your audience. It's about world building. It's about connecting. It's about making sure that people are not just coming to you to buy, but to interact, to be entertained, to feel like they're part of something is super, super important. So how do you earn trust? I'm going to fly through this. I don't want to take up too much more time. Really, it takes steps, right? You can't just like wake up one day and have everybody trusting you. You have to make sure that you're known first and foremost, because how can you trust somebody that you don't know? Then you have to be liked, which is super important right now, especially in the social era. But most importantly, you have to be action-led to be able to earn trust, right? People don't trust your words, they trust your actions. And brands that lead with actions are the ones that win and kick off the world-building flywheel. And I'm going to go really quickly on like examples of how to do that. So being known, you have to make sure that you know the platform that you're on. So there's this Dolly Parton meme that talked about the fact that she's 4 different people on 4 different platforms. If one person has 4 different characteristics on 4 different platforms, then a one-size-fits-all strategy is not going to work. Then you have to make sure that you leverage creators. Knowing the creators that already have the trust of the audience you want to interact with is super key to make sure that you can rent that trust, and then eventually create that follower crossover so that their followers become your followers. Then leveraging publishers. Like a lot of people just talk about creators, but then what about publishers? There's new publishers like Puberty and other publishers we can mention that also have very high trust. Why not use them as a new canvas for your brand? And when it comes to being liked, find a community that's underrepresented and be that uniform, right? You've seen that with Vans and skateboarders. You've seen that with Red Bull and extreme sports. You've seen that with Nike and athletes. Who is that for your brand, and how do you make sure that you get that affinity from them? Unite them on a common cause and nemesis. Document your journey as you go along, because people like authenticity. But then also make sure you have a 2-way conversation, not just a dictatorship conversation. Listen to your audience and respond back to them. And then when it comes to being action, listen. I love Whoop. They showcased that actually one of their fans were screaming out for a feature, how they launched the feature by getting the CEO to read out mean comments about them and then announcing the fact that they launched the feature finally. Everybody knows about this with Stanley, the cup that survived. A girl got her car blown up The only thing that survived was the Stanley Cup, and the CEO responded saying they're going to give her a new car, and obviously shouted out the Stanley. This is a Gymshark example. Getting involved when it matters. Obviously, for those that are in London, they know the knife crime was on the high. What they did is they used confiscated knives and turned them into gym equipment in sponsorship with the charity called Steel Warriors, which is phenomenal. But then also just create experiences worth remembering. So using IRL to disrupt URL, real world experience. We talked about demonstrating real efforts is really important to be able to win in 2026 going forward. And so to wrap up, I spoke really, really quickly. It's important to make sure that you go away from trying to mean something to everyone to meaning everything to someone. Super important. Get everyone else to talk about you instead of you being the main character of your own narrative. You don't want to be calling yourself a nice guy. And also remember, it's important to not just be known, be liked, and be action-led. Thank you. Sorry, sped through that.
Alf, you crushed it, man. You crushed it. Show love in the chat. This is one where it's like people in the recording or people in the chat are like, I need the recording. And I'm like, yup, everyone needs to watch this back. Everyone needs to watch this back. You are the man, my friend. Thank you so much. I need to catch you another time with a fedora on. Like, that's the next version. But you're the best. I appreciate you. I appreciate you a ton.
Thank you. See you in a bit.